Welcome back to Creating Cooperative Kids. I'm your host, Bill Corbett. According to the National Alliance for Caregiving, 14% of family caregivers care for a child with special needs, with an estimated 16.8 million caring for children with special needs under 18 years old. And 55% of these caregivers are caring for their own children. One aspect of parenting a special needs child is the fact that increasing the effectiveness of your communication can actually make caring for a child with special needs much easier. My next guest is not only a parenting expert, but the mother of a special needs child herself. Tara Kennedy-Kline is a certified family and parenting expert, popular radio host, TV personality, and speaker, and is a contributor to many top-rated parenting magazines. She's the author of the book, Stop Raising Einstein, Discover the Unique Brilliance in Your Child and You. Tara has two children, one of whom was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and Tara joins me on the show today to share some tips that will help parents. Welcome back to the show, Tara.
Thank you, Bill.
In the first segment, we talked about general parenting communication tips. Now, a lot of them apply to children with special needs, but I want to go into a little bit more. I want to hear from you, and I'm going to offer some as well, because special needs children have touched my life as well. My granddaughter was diagnosed with severe ADHD at the age of 4, and she was in my life in the early years. I really helped cared for her. And we have a few other family members with special needs. But I want to talk a little bit about communication tips that are specific for children with special needs, things that help specifically. So what kind of things did you do, as you heard me say in the monologue, that we have to stay on top of our parenting game with these kids? Why?
Well, I think a lot of them will hold you to your parenting game. What I found, especially with the children that I work with Asperger's, are they're so very literal, and they're so very linear, and they don't get sarcasm, they don't get jokes, they don't get passive-aggressive conversations that we sometimes fall into as parents, right? So a perfect example is my son was, he was playing in the living room and he had a glass of juice and he spilled it. And I walked in and I went, oh, that's just great. And he looked at me like, oh, cool, because I could do it again. He didn't understand at all what I was talking about. And those are the kind of things that when I'm talking to him, I have to be very literal. And his teachers struggle with him so much because they'll give him an assignment and they won't spell it out completely, and he'll do it to the literal sense and they'll mark it wrong. And he'll be like, but you don't understand. I did exactly what you told me to do. You just said it wrong. So it's kind of, I mean, they really do hold you to your game.
So you have to lay everything out in detail. You have to be very clear about what you're asking. And I think what's helped in my situation, remain calm, use a calm voice, but be very, like you said, be very clear. Maybe even map things out in writing, list specific things that they have to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I found, for example, this summer, we said no screens until the following things have been done in the house. Because they would get up and they would plunk themselves in front of the television and then they wouldn't want to do anything, right? So we made them a list of things that had to be done. I didn't say I want you to do chores for an hour. I said I want you to do these 8 things. Well, he would get up like a shot and get everything done immediately and then come and turn on the TV, and I'd be like, no way. There is no way that you've only been doing stuff for 15 minutes, and doggone it, didn't he have everything on that list done? So if my intention was for him to do chores for me for an hour, that had to be what I asked him to do, not do these 8 things, because he became masterful at them.
And you know, this reminds me of, we have a place down the road called Magic Wings. It's one of those enclosed giant terrariums where butterflies roam free. And I wanted to take my granddaughter in there, who was, by the way, not on her medication at the time. And they had on the wall the 10 rules for being in this place. And I thought, that's awesome. If everybody would do that, it would help parents with special needs children, because, you know, if they do something at a restaurant table or something and the parent says, no, no, you can't do that. Why? It doesn't say I can't do it. Exactly. But if we clearly identify, so what this place is great, and so with my granddaughter, I made her read off all the things so she would clearly know what she was accountable for while we're there.
That's awesome. And you know, it's really funny because my mother-in-law has Nana's rules. And we were always, before he was even diagnosed, he was so well behaved at her house. And then he would come home and be like a little crazy man. We were like, I don't understand how you get this done. And she said, I have Nana's rules. And he knows what they are, and they're very, very simple. And it made all the difference in the world. And that's why I think he does so well in school too. Because in the classroom there's structure and there's rules and they don't change. And then he comes home, and if it's this chaotic environment, he's going to melt down. He's going to, you know, he's going to escalate. Actually, that's kind of funny that they describe him that way. And I'm not going to know how to handle it because I'm going to want him to calm down and listen to me the way he does in school.
One of the classic parenting issues is when parents have company coming over. And so I've heard it so many times where they go, well, as soon as my brother or sister comes over with their kids, then all chaos breaks out. What I did with my children, and I think parents should do, is right before an event happens, like before we get in the car, before we go to the park, before Aunt Susie and the kids come over, let's go over the rules for the segments. I call them segments because it seems like as soon as other people come into the picture, the kids think, okay, all bets are off, I can do whatever I want, and all chaos breaks out. But I think it's really great, you know, 5 minutes before the relatives show up, go, let's go over the rules for while your aunt and uncle are here. And I don't even think it's parents should be saying, ask the kids, who can think of a rule we should have while your aunt and uncle are here?
That.
Because they may even have enough to say, because when they feel like they've contributed, they're more likely to participate and cooperate.
So true. Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I think that that's a really good rule to have as a family too, have a family meeting and come up with the rules for your home. Because I find that when kids are breaking the rules constantly, it's probably because you have too many or they don't know what they are. So if you set out the rules and you say, these are the rules of our home and these are the consequences for breaking those rules, and put on some rewards on that list too, because you know kids like rewards too. So that way you don't have to fly by the seat of your pants and react to a situation. You can respond to a situation because everybody knows the rules of the game.
All right, so let's look specifically at Asperger's syndrome, because one of the issues is, of course, the social skills.
Yes.
So what communication skills did you use with your son to get him to try to open up and to become more consciously aware of his social obligations interacting with people?
We did a lot of what we talked about in the first part of the show, which was if something went wrong, how could you have handled that differently to get the results that you wanted? And when he was able to think through it with guidance from us, he received it a lot better. And we also had to make sure that we weren't embarrassing him in the middle of a situation, because embarrassment, they perceive a lot of things as yelling or scolding, even if you're just raising your voice or speaking sternly, right? So we don't want to embarrass them, and we don't want to make them feel like they have to defend themselves or go run and hide. To basically just say, if you were to walk up to that person right now, what do you think you could say that they would like to hear? What's one compliment that you could give to that person about themselves? And that worked so well with a lot of the kids that I work with, because children like to compliment other people, but they don't always know how or what's appropriate, because that's not something we teach our kids. Isn't that kind of funny?
Another classic issue with Asperger's kids is when something isn't where they're expecting it to be. Like let's say every morning your son expected scrambled eggs and you ran out of eggs. What are some communication suggestions for parents when a meltdown could potentially be upon you if something wasn't lined up right or something didn't happen as they expected? We
try to stick to 2 choices. We always have 2 choices. So we're out of eggs right now. These are the 2 choices. What would you prefer? And it goes with socks and T-shirts and, you know, whatever their favorite thing is. You know, they have to have an option, and they have to be able to know that whatever they choose is going to be perfectly fine with you, even if it means that you're going to be wearing a pajama top to school. I really don't care, as long as you're controlling yourself, you're monitoring yourself, and you're getting to school. And that's one thing that I'm not a grades person. I'm not an academia person when it comes to my son, although he's brilliant. I would rather know that he's staying in his seat and listening to what the teacher's telling him to do than that he's getting straight A's on the test. So yeah, it's those kind of.
There's some devices that I like working with special needs kids. One is made by a company by the name of timetimer.com, and what you do, it's a really great device, and it's very inexpensive for you to use, but it's expensive to buy. Sometimes you set the red dial as to how much time a child has for an activity, and that when the red runs out, because it moves on its own, it's battery operated. So when the dial disappears, you can go, ah, the red ran out. It's time for us to get our socks on. It's time for us to put the dishes away or the toys away. This is really important because then you're also not blaming yourself. You can blame it on an inanimate object, which makes it effective. So I encourage parents to use visual timers and visual schedules as well. We're out of time, and I really thank you for coming out today to talk about this stuff. I think it's really helpful, parents. We could go on for a 5-hour show with the things that we can offer. So I really thank you for recommending the things and the tips that you came up with, and good luck on your book.
Thank you so much.
According to the American Psychological Association, research across families from all ethnic backgrounds suggests that fathers' affection and increased family involvement help promote children's social and emotional development. But what if the father is absent, either physically or emotionally? How does this impact girls in childhood and adulthood? My next guests have a very personal and professional experience with this and are going to shed some light on the impacts. We'll be right back after the short break, so don't go away.